It's your feel-good breakfast show, Expresso, and as you know, we chat about a variety of different topics, and today is no different. The pandemic has created a huge awareness around mental health issues in the workplace, and this morning we chat to business speaker and human potential expert Nikki Bush about what she is observing among her clients in corporate South Africa.
Very interesting. Nikki, it's always so great to have these conversations with you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I wanted to know from you, are the issues of self-care and well-being higher up on the, the corporate workspace agenda since the global pandemic?
Zoe, I can't tell you how different it is out there. Remember, companies were built for profit primarily. Yeah. And over the years that I've worked with corporate South Africa, there certainly wasn't an effort to focus on the health of families or, people's well-being. That was kind of given lip service. It was spoken about, but it wasn't at the top of the agenda. And right now, well-being, mental health, and psychological safety are sitting right at the top of the agenda together with work-life integration. And companies are spending a lot of money and doing many, many things to help their employees to adjust and adapt to this new way of working.
Now, I think the big question is, it's around the companies. So what are companies doing to help their staff to look after themselves better? Because, as you know, healthy staff, healthy profits. But it starts with the staff members and making sure they're motivated and looking after themselves. What are the companies doing now?
Absolutely. So if you focus on the people, the profits will flow. Exactly. And for the past 2 years, we've seen a massive expansion of wellness programs. So people like me have been invited in to give a lot of virtual presentations to staff to help them understand depression, anxiety, disruption, reframing, reauthoring their lives in order to cope with the changes that are going on. So, all of the loss and the grief and the adaptation to the new has been very important. So upskilling people as individuals to deal with these things, to cope with working from home and having children doing school from home, it's been a big change and a big ask. So the wellness programs have really increased hugely. Then there are also the employee assistance programs that large organizations who employ thousands of people have. And those programs give employees financial advice, legal advice, medical advice, psychological advice. So employees can call in any time to ask for assistance. And then there are some other things that have been more creative that have been added in. For example, there have been lunch and learns. So while you're eating your lunch, we'll have a guest speaker so that you can learn something new that'll be helpful. Then we have seen things like meeting-free Fridays or meeting-free Wednesdays, where you have a whole day where nobody's allowed to schedule a meeting, where people can just get on with their work. And so we've had things being implemented to facilitate better workflow. And then one company I know created spring break. And spring break was 1 week in spring that was mandatory for every employee to take off in order to breathe and to prepare for the onslaught of the end of the year, that race to the end of the year. So there have been quite a lot of interesting things happening in the corporate space.
Well, I'm just thinking if we get spring break,
yes.
Can you just imagine how our productivity to the end of the year would just increase?
Skyrocket.
Oh my
Makes
gosh,
sense.
I love that idea.
We'll be continuing this very important conversation on employee well-being with Nikki Bush very, very soon. Plus, a work-life balance question is quite critical too, so stay with us at your Feel Good Breakfast Show.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Oh, well, let's continue our conversation with business speaker and human potential expert Nikki Bush, discussing the link between employees' well-being and profit, a very, very current topic, I think, especially given that we are 2 years into this pandemic. Nikki, it's great to have you back.
Thank you so much.
Now, when it comes to self-care and well-being high on the agenda in the workspace today, what does this mean for work-life balance? Are people finding it possible?
I think that the great thing that's happened through the pandemic is that work-life balance, I prefer to call it work-life integration, has got to the top of the agenda. In other words, organizations, corporates, companies no longer just see you as an employee who is there to help the company make a profit, but they see you as a whole person today. It's not just you in the office, but it's you in the office plus all the other responsibilities that you carry in your life. And for the very first time, this is being acknowledged. And I think that this puts us all in a very positive space where we are able to see each other, fully see each other, as well as nurture and support each other for the first time.
And to set those boundaries.
Oh, yes, indeed, because you do get the fuel from your family life, and that fuel you inject into your occupational life, that in turn gives you that same fuel back to your family. I feel like there's an exchange there. So what are the benefits to individuals and families when it comes to work-life balance?
That word exchange is very important, Carl, because actually people are exchanging a minimum of 8 hours a day of skill and value to their organization, which is more than they actually exchange with their family in waking hours. So we need to understand that. And we need to be seen, you know, as this whole person, bringing our whole self to the table at work, which means that you are still a wife, a mum, a dad, etc. You bring all of that to the table. And then when you're home, whether home, you know, there's this blurring of the lines today. When you're home, you also don't leave your work self totally at work either, because let's face it, we are one person with many avenues of self-expression. And for the first time, that is being acknowledged. So what you do as a mum or a dad actually does qualify you in some way to do a better job at work, because you actually are a manager at home, even if you're not a manager at work.
And that's quite tricky.
Yeah.
Now, Nikki, when it comes to, you know, giving our viewers tips, I think it's very important that we get it from you. How can our viewers take a breath, really just switch off, be present with the family, and really invest in their own well-being?
Take a big deep breath, ground yourself, and intentionally use this time to take walks in places where you've never been before, whether you're on holiday or whether you're in your own suburb. I mean, I know I lived for 23 years in the same suburb, and there was a little park that I never ever visited. You know, what are we thinking? We've got all these things at our disposal and we don't use them. Talk to different people. Have a braai with somebody you haven't seen for a long time. Make that coffee date with that old school friend that you connected with on Facebook and you haven't seen for 20 years. Children provide you with that wonderful opportunity to pause and stop and take a breath by playing with them. The weather is still beautiful at this time of the year, and you might create an obstacle course in your garden. You might go on scooters riding through your suburb, or bicycles through a cycle park. Cook, open those recipe books and pick out recipes that you've never made before. When we do things that are different to the norm, it makes our brain switch track. And that is really important for refreshing what's going on in our head, just as it's important to give our brains different things to see through our eyes. And right now, the cosmos is out in full force. Find a local park or go on a drive where the cosmos is out in bloom, because that's like a magnificent sensory painting, and it gives your brain 1,000 reasons to take new pictures to refresh itself.
Wow.
Yes.
No, I think this is beautiful because, I mean, if you look at the Easter break, if you look at the coincidence of it representing things like rebirth, I think that's exactly what you should do for our own souls. So thank you, Nikki, for giving us that encouragement. And also the great thing is, Zoe and I need to note, is that HR was listening to you with regard to a spring break. And that should be implemented immediately. And now that it's on live TV, they can't go back on their word. Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks, Carl. Absolutely loved this conversation.
Oh, it really was a good conversation, but if you're looking for more information, you can get a hold of Nikki's book. It's called Future Proof Yourself, and you can visit her website at nikkibush.com.
Spring break coming soon.